One of the biggest names in the game joins the Around the Wicket team. Glenn Maxwell chats to us from India. Mitchell Starc finally comes good, but it's at the expense of a couple of his Aussie teammates. We get reaction from Michael Clarke. And Callum Ferguson has the latest on some big updates in domestic cricket. Let's go Around the Wicket. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Around the Wicket. I'm Neroli Meadows, Callum Ferguson alongside me. Let's get stuck into the IPL straight away because, of course, there's a World Cup in June and we need the Aussies to fire Ferg.
Yes.
Overnight, it was KKR, which is Mitchell Starc. They posted an enormous total up against the
Huge.
Delhi Capitals, which features Mitch Marsh and David Warner. And we'll chat to Michael Clarke shortly, who was there to watch it all unfold. 106-run victory in the end for KKR. But let's have a look at how the Aussie batters are faring this IPL.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a great start, as you mentioned before, but we're just starting to see a little bit of a spike in form. David Warner's been rock solid at the top of the order for Delhi, and Travis Head, I really loved what he brought to the table in that record score the other day for Sunrisers, Hyderabad. 62 off 24, quite incredible stuff. You couldn't ask for a better start. So that was in his first game. Tim David, you don't normally see his average outweighing his strike rate, but it is at this stage of the tournament. It's only early. Cameron Green struggling with the bat at the moment, as is Mitch Marsh, Marcus Stoinis and our man Maxi. So a couple of guys there still yet to fire, but they'll come good, no doubt about it in my mind. But Travis Head and Davey Warner, they've hit the ground running.
The good news for Glenn Maxwell is even though he's picked up a couple of ducks, he's also picked up 4 wickets and he's leading the way for Australia when it comes to the bowlers, doing a pretty handy job for RCB.
Yeah, absolutely, and bowling at Bangalore as well, no easy feat, and he's doing it beautifully at the moment with that low economy rate and 4 wickets. Pat Cummins doing what Pat Cummins does. He's played in some high-scoring games, and keeping that economy rate under 8 has been supremely impressive. Mitch Starc, for mine, needed a bounce back after his first 2 games, none for 100. He took 2 for 25 last night for KKR off 3 overs. He's back in. He's up and running.
All right, let's move on to some domestic matters because your state, South Australia, not going so well of late. Jason Gillespie has pulled the pin with a year to go on his contract. Tim Nielsen was already gone. How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, look, winds of change are here. And look, I would suggest that there's going to be a lot of movement from the board over the next couple of months. They're going to look to have their high performance manager, general manager of high performance, in place by July, which will lead to the coach to follow that. So there's a bit of work to be done there. Ryan Harris, obviously a fan favourite of the Australian cricket team for a long, long time. He's now in the role as interim head coach of the Redbacks. So winds of change. I like the list, though. I do feel like they probably didn't quite get the job done with the bat, though. So the bowling depth's great, but I think they need another top-order player. My understanding is they actually sounded out a former international player recently, and that doesn't look to have gotten over the line. That's fallen flat. So they might have to look domestically, and my understanding is they've spoken to a few players who have actually travelled down to South Australia to have a look around at the facilities.
You're a great of South Australian cricket. Would you like to see Ryan Harris with the full-time gig?
Look, it'd be great for South Australian cricket, I think. He'd have to be right in the mix. Of course, you've got to go through the process, though. Obviously, Ryan hasn't had a full-time head coach's role yet in his career. I think he's certainly a guy that's done the yards, though. He's worked under some fantastic coaches around the world. So he'd be well positioned now, but certainly I dare say the board will have a good look around the world and try and appoint the very best person for the role.
Dizzy Gillespie, he's put his hat in the ring for the Pakistan job,
Yes.
which we believe is going to be a split role, similar to England of Test to white ball cricket. What's your mail?
My mail is that it's more likely to be the Test role that he gets into, and he's a very strong chance to get that. So watch this space over the next month because I think something will come pretty quickly.
We keep our fingers crossed
Yeah.
for Jason Gillespie. Speaking of Pakistan, Really interesting situation going on with the captaincy. Babar Azam has been reappointed white ball captain after just a couple of short months for Shaheen Shah Afridi. Shan Masood is holding on to the Test captaincy for now, although there's whispers that Babar would also like that role back. And then on the statement released by the PCB, Shaheen Shah Afridi has apparently come out and said, "They're not my quotes."
Yes.
What have you made of it all?
Oh, look, it's not uncommon for there to be a little bit of instability amongst the Pakistan ranks, let's face it, but they've quite often banded together pretty well and steeled themselves in and amongst the chaos. So, look, I think that there's no doubt that Shaheen Shah Afridi would be very disappointed to have been quoted when he's saying he never made any statements to be quoted from. So he'd be very disappointed about that. But look, I like Babar Azam coming back into the role in the white ball cricket. I think it's a nice way to get him back into it. I think they see him as the long-term captain, but I'd love to see Shan Masood stay in the role as Test captain at this point. I thought the impact he had on that squad during the Australia series here in the summer was outstanding. He led from the front, spoke beautifully in front of the public and the press, and I thought the way he led at the top of the batting order in such a positive frame of mind was fantastic for the team. So I'd like to see that split stay for now, with the long-term aim for Babar to take over in the long run.
It's going to be really interesting to see the response at the World Cup, because Babar Azam was World Cup captain at the ODIs and it didn't all go to plan, and we know in the T20 it's coming up just around the corner. Speaking of coming up just around the corner, Michael Clarke is about to join us from India, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Around the Wicket, where we need to head to where the action is, and that's India. Michael Clarke joins us. Pup, overnight you were commentating on KKR up against DC. Let's start with Mitchell Starc, because he's finally off the board. None for 100 in his first 2 games, and then he gets a couple of wickets. The only problem is it's at the expense of the Aussies. How did you see Starkey's performance?
Yeah, hey guys, excuse my bedroom in the background. Look, it was great to see Starkey take a couple of wickets. I think that just relieves a bit of pressure. Listening to him speak after the game, I think he was pretty honest and said, "Look, I feel like I haven't changed too much. I'm bowling the same as I did in the first game, but I just didn't get the wickets, couple of drop catches, balls seemed to go in the gap." And I think that's a good example of what being a bowler is like in T20 cricket. But yeah, look, he wasn't at his best, but I think his pace was up. And I think he was a little bit down on confidence because he hasn't taken wickets. So, yeah, it was a shame that it come at the expense of Mitchell Marsh and Davey Warner. I'm sure Starkey will love that and be winding the boys up for a few months about it anyway. But, yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see. KKR were brilliant. The fact they've been able to win without Starkey taking wickets it shows they're a pretty good team. Now, if he gets it right, they are contenders, I reckon. They look very good. They've got a lot of depth with the bat. They've got experience with the ball. So, yeah, it's I'd like to see all the Aussies do well every game, but as we know in cricket, that's not the case. But, yeah, he was good last night.
Just quickly, just talk about that pressure that Mitch would have been under, whether it be in the press or on TV and the analysis going on around the games.
Yeah, well, Ferg, you know what it's like. If you're not performing at the highest level, there is pressure that comes from within. That's the most amount of pressure. You normally put it on yourself. But when you add Starkey's price tag to it, then there's the outside noise as well. Like, I don't think there's been an article on Mitchell Starc anywhere around the world that hasn't mentioned the dollar figure that he's getting paid. So it's hard not to read that. Starkey checks his bank account. I'm sure he sees it. So he would have felt it. But, yeah, it does. I think individually, some people handle that pressure different to others, some better than others, some are more comfortable with it. But look, nobody can doubt Starkey's talent. And I think it was just a matter of time. Now him picking up those 2 wickets, don't be surprised if he continues to take plenty and he's at the top of the tree in regards to wicket takers at the end of this IPL.
If it's not the $4.4 million price tag, it's the $24 million house. But anyway, we move from one Mitch to another. Mitch Marsh out for a duck. Previously, he's been getting starts and continuing that nice strike rate, but not going on with it. Is he under a bit of pressure, bearing in mind that we believe he's going to be the World Cup captain for Australia in June?
Nez, to be honest, I don't feel he should be under pressure because I've watched him all summer and he's been batting really well across, Test cricket, certainly one-day cricket. Throughout that World Cup, he was a genius. So for me personally, I don't feel like he should be under pressure. But over here, I can tell you there's a bit of talk about it. Last night in the commentary box, there's a bit of noise around his T20 performances over a period of time. And again, in IPL, you're only allowed 4 overseas plays. So if the team's not winning, which Delhi aren't, they've only won 1 game against Chennai, and you're not scoring runs as an overseas player, you're going to be under pressure. They're going to look to, either replace you or you're going to feel that pressure. And I hope they stick with Mitch. I don't think he's far away. Like even last night, he creams that ball. He just picks out that man at points. Yeah. But he does need to score runs, that's for sure, in this format.
Like you say, runs on the board across all forms as well in more ways than one. What about Davey Warner? He's been pretty good, off to a pretty strong start, and he's been under the pump in the last few years in the IPL, that strike rate coming under plenty of scrutiny.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Again, over here in India, they're talking about his strike rate, particularly after the power play in those middle overs. He's not finding the boundaries that he used to. But again, I think Davey's played pretty well. He needs a bit of help around him as well. Like Mitch is batting at 3 and he hasn't scored the runs that he would like. They've just brought in Prithvi Shaw's opening the batting, which I think is a good thing for Davey because, he's quite aggressive as well, which allows Davey to not have to think he needs to up the ante all the time. He can go back to playing his natural game. He scored 2 50s already in this IPL. So I don't see why Davey's under pressure. I think he needs a bit of help around him. I like that he's still batting well. Now he's not playing, for Australia in the test in the one-day format. I like that he still looks like he's in good form. So whatever he's doing at training is working. Sometimes you can get a bit rusty when you walk away from international cricket and you probably don't have the same work ethic. But you can't tell. He looks good. Last night chasing 270 odd. He's got to go hard and try and find that boundary. But yeah, I think Davey's shown in this format he's a very good player. It's just statistics, the commentary, teams, opposition, media, they're just looking at that period after the power play where once he gets in, I think he'll be fine finding those boundaries, but it's giving him something to discuss over here at the moment.
And Fergie missing out on the 100 ahead of the IPL just added that little further question mark, didn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it did, but at the same time...
As in the competition, the 100, by the way, for anyone who's watching and a little bit confused about missing out on 100.
Yeah, that's right. So, look... He would have been really disappointed, and now he's got another reason to try and prove people wrong. And we know Davey Warner loves to prove people wrong. So I'm really excited to see where he takes this tournament because he started really well.
Ricky Ponting as coach, we keep using that word, but pressure, is it mounting?
Again, I just think it's a good example of sport at the highest level. It doesn't matter how good a player you were, how good a coach you are. I think if your team's not winning, then, everybody becomes under pressure. And punter's probably there. Delhi didn't perform well last year. Again, when you look at the Delhi team, individually, they're probably not as strong as, look at KKR or Chennai or even Mumbai, RCB. These guys are full of extremely talented, international players. But I think Ricky's just got to try to keep getting the best out of his team. And they do need a win. I think that, getting walloped last night doesn't help. But yeah, I think it's a sign of coaching at the highest level. If your team's not performing, you're going to be under pressure. But yeah, I think Delhi's got a very good coach in Ricky Ponting. He's got to find ways to get this team to obviously play better than they did last night.
An ongoing shining light is the skipper Rishabh Pant and his comeback. 4-6-6, 4-4-4 off 1 over 28 runs. Yes, it's a small sample size and we wait and see how his body holds up under the rigours of this competition. But would you like to see him playing for India in the Test format next summer here in Australia, Pup?
Oh, definitely. I think we all do. The story of what Rish has gone through is phenomenal. The fact he's even on a sporting field is amazing. So credit to him, all the rehab and hard work he's done just to get back out there. And he hasn't skipped a beat. The game against Chennai and then last night, the way he's batted, he's such an important player for this Delhi team. Obviously, their captain. He's got a wicket keeper as well, first and foremost. So India need him, I think, and I think he's an X factor player for any team he plays. So, I'd love to see him come to Australia. Hopefully, he's fully fit. He gets through this tournament uninjured, and that knee's okay. comes to Australia and, he's at his best, I think then we'll see an absolute cracking test series in Australia.
Pup, what about the ongoing saga at the Mumbai Indians? Hardik Pandya as captain gets booed at the Wankhede at their home ground, which I don't think many people were expecting, prompting Sanjay Manjrekar at the toss to say, behave to the crowd. It didn't stop them. It's very unusual to hear Indians booing their own or even booing at all. What have you made of it all? And what do you think the internal conversations will be with them starting with 3 losses under his captaincy?
Yeah, again, that doesn't help when your team's not performing. I spoke to Hardik when I got over here, and he seems like he's going fine. Again, he's really confident sort of person, Hardik. So he won't allow this to get to him, but he does need to get this team winning games of cricket. Mumbai is such a good team, and there's high expectation always. So the fans want them at the top of the tree. At the moment, they're at the bottom of the tree. So I think first and foremost, he just needs to concentrate on team winning and him performing individually. But it's been heavy, to be honest, to be at the ground and to hear the fans boo their captain and a guy who has had huge influence in this Mumbai team. And impact with the success they've had. I feel like it's probably at a stage, if it keeps going, then Rohit Sharma's going to have to come out and probably say something publicly and really support Hardik. Because, you don't like seeing that.
Have you ever seen anything like this before, Mick? Have you ever seen anything like this?
I have. I copped it at the Gabba one day, Ferg, captaining Australia. I got absolutely smacked when I walked out the bat. Fans booing me, and then I think I made 100, and they stood and applauded as I walked off. So I think the one that stands out for me as a kid growing up, I remember Wally Lewis playing rugby league in Sydney, and he was the Australian captain at the time, and everyone just booed him as the Queensland captain, So I think it happens in sport. I just think home fans booing is, it's not okay. And Hardik, it's not like Hardik's, made the decision to be captain. Mumbai Indians have made that decision. They bought him back. They gave him the captaincy. I just hope him and Rohit are fine. Again, they've always got on pretty well. Rohit's a super guy and a great player. So that's the other thing. We probably need Rohit Sharma making runs as well for Mumbai to have the success that they've always had. But yeah, I think let's get some wins if you're Mumbai Indians. Hardik's got to keep playing well, and then hopefully the fans get behind the team and Hardik as captain.
Michael Clarke, always appreciate your thoughts. We will never boo you on this show, I promise you.
Oh, yeah, heard that before. Got full support of the board, do I?
Look forward to chatting to you this time next week. Don't go anywhere because this superstar of Aussie cricket, of world cricket, Glenn Maxwell, joins us next. Time to welcome one of the biggest superstars in the white ball game, and that is Glenn Maxwell. He joins us now from Bengaluru, where he is representing RCB. Maxie, thanks so much for joining the Around the Wicket team. Callum Ferguson alongside me as well. Obviously not the start you were after this IPL. How are you feeling? Let's start with that.
Yeah, it's obviously hasn't been a great start for us or myself individually. It's been a little bit of a struggle, I think. I think we've been probably caught a little bit behind, I think, with our conditions that we've sort of probably produced in the first few home games as well. I think last year we had a beautiful even wicket that we were able to, I suppose, get ourselves into the game, get our top batters going, and felt like with those 2 pace wickets, it's just been a bit of a struggle for our overseas players to get into the game and get that sort of consistency of performance. And when you start slow in T20 cricket, it can come back and be a hard thing rhythm to, I suppose, get back into it. So hopefully this little away trip does us some good.
It's always tricky, Maxie, isn't it, when you're not 100% sure what you're producing at home, to really make it a fortress. But you've started well with the ball yourself, mate. How are you feeling about all of that? And does that feel like it might just leak into your batting a bit as we go?
Yeah, well, the stupid thing is, Ferg, I don't think I've hit the ball better in training. And over the last 6 months, I felt really good and turned up in great nick. And I suppose just a couple of strange dismissals. Like I hit a couple of one cut shot to deep point
Yep.
and chopped on another one. And it's just one of those things in T20 cricket. It can sort of compound on top of itself where if you're not 100% quite on your game, it just seems to, I suppose, snowball into a couple more games. And but yeah, still feel really good. Bowling's always felt pretty consistent. The work I've put in with Adam Griffith, our bowling coach, is really starting to show dividends. I think the extra bit of bounce that I'm now getting from having a bit more of a change run up, a bit more energy through the crease, has probably shown in a couple of the dismissals that I've been able to create this year, which has been a nice change, not just sort of sliding onto the middle of the bat and getting pumped everywhere. So it's been a nice change.
Who knows, maybe you can pick up that purple cap along the way, Maxie. But speaking of bowlers, Mayank Yadav, 21 years of age, up against LSG. He was the one that got you in the last one, as well as your teammate Cameron Green. 156.7 kilometres an hour, as I say, at 21 years of age. What is this kid capable of, and how tough is it to face?
Yeah, I've got to say, I watched the game before us, and I watched with great interest and saw him bowl, and I thought it was really impressive. He hurried on a few of the Punjab batters and certainly did a little bit of homework against him before coming up against him. But it's nothing doing homework against someone until you actually sort of see it come out of the hand and sort of have to sort of try and pick up the length. And he bowled me the first one, which was just a high bouncer, and as I said, the wicket that we've been producing at Bangalore has been a little bit too paced, and it sort of came through a bit slower than I thought it was going to. And I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And then the next one was hard length and skidded on probably faster than I thought it was going to be. And as you saw, went to pull thinking that I picked up the length really well. And before you know it, it's on you and hitting the shoulder of the bat and ballooning up in the air. And he has some real extra speed that you don't really see a lot of around world cricket at the moment. You see guys bowl pretty consistently around the 140s or high 140s, but to have mid 150s consistently in your arsenal is pretty formidable.
Who does he remind you of, Maxie, bowling that consistent, mid 150s, high 150s, but action-wise, does he remind you of anyone?
To be honest, I probably haven't seen enough of him to sort of remind me of anyone. I think it's such a beautiful, smooth action. He sort of glided through the crease really nicely. I think pace-wise, the only one that I can sort of really resemble it to is a little bit like Sean Tate when he was in his heyday. And I know you would have seen a fair bit of him, but I think when he was at the peak of his powers, and it was extremely hard to pick up at the extra sort of zip it feels like it has off the wicket. I think that's as close as it probably comes to it.
Yeah, I saw way too much of him in the nets, unfortunately.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen is Sean Tate trying to work out a batting average. But anyway, we move right along. Maxi, Virat Kohli, he's leading the orange cap at the moment. He's got that strike rate going, getting off to really nice starts in the power play. You've obviously got that bit in common with him that you're raising a new baby at the moment, so you've got fatherhood to chat about as well. What's he been like after a couple of months break, bringing in his second child into the world?
Yeah, he's been brilliant coming back into the group, and you can sort of see he was bouncing around. He was pretty excited to be back amongst the RCB boys, and even just sort of being around the guys, playing well again, running around the field. He's like a kid in the field. It's so funny watching him bounce around, and have to sort of remind him to act his age every now and then. Because he's making me look bad. I think we're the same age. I think we're a month apart. So,
just quietly, if Maxie's trying to tell you to act your age, you're really in trouble.
You're not going well if I'm telling you that.
Hey, Maxie.
He's been brilliant, and the way he's been batting, he's been leading the way.
And just on Ben Stokes, you would have seen that he's pulled out of the World Cup. Is that something you're excited to see from an Australian point of view, or concerned that he's trying to ready himself for a big next couple of years?
Well, if he's concerning himself for a big couple of years, hopefully I don't have to see him much more going forward. But yeah, any time like another international team loses a world-class player, it's obviously going to be beneficial to our team. And Ben Stokes has given us a lot of headaches over the years. He's extremely hard to plan against. He's a multifaceted cricketer. He does it all in bat, ball and field, and I'm sure England are going to sorely miss him.
Hey, Maxi, there's some news coming out that in the Big Bash for the next couple of years, you can sign an overseas player, but it means that they have to be available for the entire length of the tournament from next season and beyond. Do you think this is going to fix anything?
It's a hard one because I just don't see how someone could commit themselves to a multi-year deal when there's so much unknown, I think, with the international schedule. So we look at this year from a personal standpoint. We had Osama Mir, who we thought was going to be available for the whole time. So if we had signed him on a full-year contract to be there the whole time, Pakistan picked him up and took him away after 5 games. And you can't compete with international cricket. You can't compete with other tournaments around the world. And I think it's all good in theory, but it's not going to. I don't think it's going to solve too many of the big issues right now.
Well, Maxi, we really appreciate you being a part of the Around the Wicket team. I know you're going to join us over the next couple of weeks as well. So we're hoping that you get those runs on the board, and I can tell you're in a really relaxed frame of mind. So it's good to see, and we love having your company. So thanks for joining us.
No worries at all.
Fire up, Maxi.
Glenn Maxwell there live from India. Don't go anywhere. The short stuff is next. Time for the short stuff, and I love this from a passionate RCB fan. He's got the women's team tattooed on his arm. Elise Perry, Sophie Molyneux are stuck there forever. If you could pick one team tattooed to your body, who would it be? What would it be?
I'd never do that. Alan Border's Australian World Cup winning team in 1987 in India won the first World Cup for Australia. I'd run with that.
Mumbai Indians under the pump. Jasprit Bumrah, should he be bowling the first over every single game?
He has to. He's got to get on the front foot, Hardik Pandya, and throw the best asset they've got.
We had KKR last night, 272. Sunrisers the other day, 277. What is possible? Are we going to crack 300?
I think we will at some point. I just find it really hard to believe that we've got this far into the 270s.
Unbelievable numbers at the IPL. Join us again next week. Pup and Maxi and Ferg are all going to be back. See you then.